Hello, hello, hello. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us right here, Fantasy Life on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you for the next couple hours. You already know, though, we are excited. We've got a lot of news to get to. I mean, there's not, we can go back and forth. We can talk about the concert that you went to. We can talk about a lot of other things, but we've got a lot to talk about today. I'm excited. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, there's always something going on in the NFL right now, and it just never ends. Even the schedule drop is this week, right? I mean, that's always a big event. I think it's Wednesday. Yeah.
Oh, those are always so fun. Those teams get so creative in how they do that.
That is true. That's the one good aspect of it. The crazy part is we know who everyone is playing. We just don't know when. And it does actually matter for fantasy. There are people drafting best balls right now, and you do want to know who the playoff schedule is. And obviously so many things can change with teams. Defenses we think are good turn bad and vice versa. But it is important aspect of fantasy football is knowing that schedule, bye weeks and all that. So we'll find that out on Wednesday.
Do you think they listened to us with the bye weeks from last? No, you don't think so? Let me jog everyone's memory here. Week 14, you had Baltimore, the Denver Broncos, Houston Texans, Colts, Patriots, Commanders, all on a bye.
You knew that offhand, or you just quickly looked that up?
No, are you kidding? You kidding?
I don't know. You just were ready with it. Like I was
Maybe
like,
I should have just said, yeah.
You should have. I don't think I would have believed you, but I might have for a second. But the funny part is, look, I know the NFL is not going to worry about fantasy football, but it does bring a lot of eyeballs to the NFL. Yes. And someone should say, hey, fantasy football is a big part of it. And we got some complaints last year that week 14 was an important week. Let's just try and to limit 2 teams on buying week 14, if any. I mean, for real, read the room, and someone should at least suggest it and bring it up, because it is a big part of football. I mean, they could say whatever they want. The reason why there's so many viewers to the NFL, it really is fantasy and gambling is a big aspect of it. Like, who's watching 2 terrible teams on a Thursday night?
Exactly.
It's people who play fantasy football and people who are betting on the sport. I mean, we watch all those games. I probably would watch it even without it. To be honest, I just love sports and I'm a big fan. But it does make it more interesting to watch, especially when you have 2 bad teams on a Thursday night. You get the occasional bad Monday night football game. But obviously, our fantasy leagues are on the line. And obviously, I do a lot of betting as well. So they should be cognizant of that. And let's hope that we don't have that issue, because it is a big problem. There are some leagues, I know the FFPC has their playoffs in week 14, and that's a problem. That's a real problem when you have 6 teams on bye, and you could be out in week 1 of your playoffs just because you have 4 guys out. And, people will say, well, you got to draft accordingly, but do you really want to pass on a elite player just because they have a bye in week 14? So it does make it challenging. So let's hope that we don't go through that issue this year.
Yeah, let's hope. Even week 12, I was looking back, week 12 as well. I mean, you had the Jets, the Saints, Jaguars, Bengals, Bills, Falcons, but there were just so many teams that just all clumped together in the last 2 weeks before the fantasy playoffs, at least. And then you said, wow, all these teams are going to be on a bye. And that's the other thing that I've gotten a couple questions, and we're definitely going to talk about it once the schedule comes out. But, I don't take too much consideration into the bye weeks. When I'm drafting my team, Adam, I'll make sure that I don't have, 6 players on the same bye week. That's important. But to me, I just want to look at it, and you just have to. I've been drafting already on best ball. You already know that on Underdog. So I look for it, but it's not something, unless I'm drafting, 6 players with the same bye week, then you have a problem. But it's just something we look at and we pay attention to for the next couple months. But it's not something that definitely changes my philosophy and how I draft.
Yeah, I don't think you can, because it can hurt you. So, for example, the bye weeks that you look at the most are for your backup quarterback and your backup tight end. But I will say this. If you have a quarterback, so the later in the year, I don't think you worry about it as much. So say you draft, your starting quarterback has a bye in week 12, and then you're looking for a backup quarterback because you're in a deeper league, and your best quarterback on the board by far also has a bye in week 12, I would still take him, because you don't know what's going to happen between the start of the season and as we go on. And I think a lot of people don't do that. They're going to be like, oh, why would I take two quarterbacks with the same bye. Again, if it's week 12 later in the season, now week 4, no, you're not going to do that. Week 4, week 5, no, you don't want to do that. But like say for example, last year you took CJ Stroud and he had a bye in week 12. I know he did it. Maybe you know all the bye weeks from last year offhand. But say you did that, right? And now you get to round 13 and you're like, I love this quarterback, whoever, like say Bo Nix, for example, and he has a bye in week 12. A lot of people are like, I can't do it. Do it. If you really like that player, even tight end, say for example, 2 years ago in Laporta's rookie season, I think this happened to me in the league. So I drafted a tight end and then he had the same bye week as Laporta. And I said, I'm not going to pass him up here because Laporta has the ability to, no one thought he was going to do what he did in his rookie year, but I'm going to take a chance on a tight end going to a good offense. There's a lot of people who would say, nope, not going to take him. You don't want to pass on that potential breakout just because they have the same bye week. And again, this is mostly later in the year because, so say the CJ Stroud example I gave from last year, CJ Stroud was probably not your starting quarterback as you got on during the season. And Bo Nix was a guy you would start. So you would sit there and regret, wow, why did I pass on him just because they had the same bye week? So especially as it's later in the year, don't worry about it. You'll figure it out. Things change. There's injuries. Players are going to disappoint. So the later the bye week, I would not worry about it. Now, best ball, obviously, you can't do that unless you're taking a third, and you can't. So best ball, completely different story. And that's why people who are already drafted, when this schedule comes out, they're going to look back on some of their teams and be like, oh, no. Like, if you just drafted two quarterbacks and they both have the same bye week, you're kind of screwed. But if you're drafting before the schedule comes out, you clearly are going to do a lot of volume, and you understand that can happen. So, but yeah, that's one thing. Don't let the late round picks prevent you from taking a player you really like just because the starting quarterback, starting tight end has the same bye. This is more for redraft, obviously, because you can figure it out off the waiver wire. And because I've seen it before where people passed on a player that had a breakout season. Yeah. You don't want that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's going to come out. What'd you say, Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah.
Oh, that'll be fun. Okay, that'll be fun. I'm looking. What's the team you're most looking forward to? I love the Chargers social media team. Does a great job. They just every single year they blow it out of the water. So I'm really looking forward to them. I think that's my favorite one.
Yeah, I like obviously the prime time schedule. I like to look at. You to look at your own team. Like for example, I tend to go to every Cowboys Giants game. Now I caught a break last year because it was Thursday night. So going to Thursday night is perfect. You don't miss any other games. You don't have to worry. Now, I'm afraid it's probably not going to be a primetime game, Giants-Cowboys this year. Probably not.
Probably not, yeah.
So if it's a Sunday afternoon and I'm offered tickets, do I go? I don't know.
But then you miss all the other, because it's not just Sunday afternoon. You have to you get there early and then you're missing everything. You miss everything. That's the tough part with us. We just don't go to games unless it's an island game, like you said.
Yeah, the island game is perfect because, again, you're not – even Sunday night is dicey. It's a little bit better, but you're going to miss the end of the 1 o'clock games, some of the 4 o'clock games. Yeah. It's a little bit better. You could still come home and catch up on everything and, go back and watch some of the games, but it's better to have a Thursday night or Monday night game if you're going to a game.
All right, Cowboys, come on, give Adam something to look forward to here. Let's continue on, Adam, because we got a ton of news over this past week. I think we're gonna obviously go in depth about the Cowboys, but we have to start, I think, with Derek Carr because this was big. Honestly, this wasn't on my bingo card, Adam. Also, I just did not expect Derek Carr to be retiring from the NFL, but he is doing just that after 11 seasons. It's because of that shoulder injury. So this was reported by all NFL Network insiders, right? Ian Rappaport, Tom Pelissero, Mike Garafolo, and this was Saturday. And so the team later announced and put out a statement saying that they discovered in the injury in late March while they were ramping up for the 2025 season, and that he could not really go into the 2025 season without getting the surgery. And then they said surgery would jeopardize his 2025 season altogether. And there was no guarantee also, Adam, that he would kind of go back to a level of play that was going to be good or serviceable for the Saints moving forward. So Derek Carr just decided, you know what, I am going to retire. So he was drafted in 2014. He was a starter from day one, and now he played 11 seasons in the NFL. And there's a lot of questions now where they got insurance in the NFL draft, which was great. But if it's going to go that direction, it looks like it's going to be they're just going to let all these quarterbacks play against each other in training camp all the way through until they find their starter. But big news for the Saints here.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I don't think we were really anticipating Carr playing this year anyway. It was just a matter of how significant the injury was. So we know the Saints are in a spot where we're not expecting much from them, but I would think they go with Tyler Shock, right? I mean,
You would think.
they can say what they want right now, but you drafted the guy. Unless they go out and get a Kirk Cousins, right? I guess that's certainly a possibility.
Aaron Rodgers.
Do you see Rodgers going there? I don't. Why would Rodgers go there?
I don't know, but I just know we know Aaron Rodgers though, and it feels like he's still not going to have a decision right away. So that's the only thing is like maybe he's going to make us think that he's going to go there for the next couple of months, but I don't know. I don't know why you would go there. I still think that he goes to the Steelers too.
I think so as well, and I'm guessing they feel that way.
Yeah.
In addition.
Yeah, so retiring Derek Carr then foregoes the $30 million guaranteed this season for his contract. So he's not he already got the $10 million roster bonus. So he's going to be able to get that. But I agree with you. Tyler Shough was taking snaps in the team's indoor practice facility just a few hours. They reported before this news came down. And so, like I said, they said that there's going to be a competition between Tyler Shough, who again was a second round pick, Spencer Rattler, and then Jake Haener. And we can honestly, Adam, let's just throw Jake Haener out the window because that's not going to happen. We already know that. But between Spencer Rattler did get starts last season as well. He just didn't get a win in any of those starts when all of the injuries started coming down. So I agree. Tyler Shough is probably going to be the guy that they go to for the 2025 season. But even then, Adam, like we updated our rankings at fantasylife.com. He's still QB 28. You're not going out of your way to draft Tyler Shough right now because of this news. I do think, if you're Chris Olave and a Chris Olave manager, maybe you're a little bit more excited because that was one of the points last season where he went down with concussions and it was, I think his family, there were some family tweets saying like, hey, we got to get him out of here. So if you're Chris Olave, you're a little bit more happy about that news. But I mean, Tyler Shough does not jump up the ranks where we say immediately he's a top 20 quarterback. He's still going to be outside the top 25.
Yeah, and in a super flex league, you could take him as a third quarterback and see what happens. Maybe he emerges. There are some weapons on this team. So that's where I would be drafting him as a third quarterback in a super flex league.
Yeah, it's were you surprised? I was surprised by this, by the way. I just didn't expect it. I'm with you where I didn't expect him to play for 2025, but then moving forward, I was like, okay, we're still going to have all these weird random questions. He's still kind of going to be around, but just retiring like that on a Saturday morning, I was like, okay, there we go.
Yeah, I guess the shoulder was that bad and
crazy.
Didn't want to risk surgery. I get it. I mean, you always want to avoid surgery at all costs if possible.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was, he, let's see, what did he do with the Saints? 14-13 record, a little over 6,000 yards, 40 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. How would you describe those years with the Saints? They were, rocky.
The first two games last year were great. What was it, 91 points? And then it was all downhill.
We talked about it. We were like, could we imagine the Saints? Because we were ready. We were like, if we go to New Orleans and the Saints are there in the Super Bowl, man, that was tough. That didn't last very long.
No, we knew it was not going to last. I don't think anyone really bought in. It was just, things broke right. They outscored the opponents 91-29 the first 2 weeks, and then it just caved in and fell apart pretty quickly.
Brutal. So Tyler Shough, maybe, they're going to go as long as they can saying that this is a quarterback competition, but really between Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler, I'm drafting Alvin Kamara this season for sure. Chris Olave, I think has the discount now, Adam, where he is not going in the middle of the second round like he was last season. There is a discount with Chris Olave, knowing about the injuries that he has, knowing about the concussions he went down with, and that was really, really disappointing because we know how talented Chris Olave is. That's the thing. It's all right there. Rashid Shaheed is someone that can go late round. We know that Amanda at Fantasy Life Koodadoodle loves getting her shares of Rashid Shaheed, and we had him on the show during Super Bowl week. But other than that, it's really only those three because, like you said, I'm not going out of my way to draft Tyler Shough unless it's super flex and he's my third quarterback and everything goes wrong with my other two, or maybe Tyler Shough shines a little bit. But those are really the three that you're looking at for this year for fantasy.
Yeah, and again, a lot of it comes down to price. If people are going to really push Olave down the board, then you're open to it. Like if you can get him as a wide receiver 3, and I think a lot of people are going to be hesitant because of this offense, but someone has to catch passes here. And, I do like Shaheed too. He's a guy that I've been drafting the last couple of years, because he was so late. Even last year, I had quite a bit. And then got excited with the start to the season. The first 2 weeks, he had touchdowns in each of the first 2 games. And we've always seen his yards per reception in his career has been high. And then the offense cratered, and then he got injured.
Yep. Those are the 3, Adam. That's what we're doing. And I don't know. That's kind of it. And Chris Olave is just going to be another interesting one because, we always talked about drafting him last season, and he was going in the middle of the second round right by Drake London. And that was always a question for me. I was like, okay, I want shares of both of these guys. I want to make sure that I get sprinkle as much of them as I can throughout our drafts. But yeah, Chris Olave is going to be the big kind of question mark where I think you get to a point in a draft and you say, well, this is, he slid a little bit too far, but we have to take into consideration Tyler Shuck now starting, getting his first reps in the NFL and how that's going to translate to the NFL as well. So again, Derek Carr retired just on Saturday after 11 seasons in the NFL. So we'll have to see who ends up being the QB1 for the New Orleans Saints over there, but it's looking like it's going to be Tyler Shuck. We have to now, Adam, talk about George Pickens and your Dallas Cowboys surprising everyone, doing a trade a little bit better than the Jonathan Mingo trade from last season. We're going to talk about that here coming up next. Fantasy football is life. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us right here. Fantasy Life on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio. Kendall Valenzuela, Adam Ronis, at KValenzuela17, at Adam Ronis over there on Twitter, on X. Mother's Day, Adam. Happy Mother's Day to your mom. It's all great day. What are we talking about here?
Yes. Happy Mother's Day to your mom as well, if she's listening. And all the mothers out there, we appreciate you.
I love it. And you went to you had a great weekend, by the way. I was kind of jealous. You went to Kendrick, Lamar, and SZA. So should I go? Was it so good that I need to get a ticket?
Yeah, I think so. It was, great performance. It was like almost 3 hours.
Wow.
So,
did they have an opener? Did anyone open, or did they just start?
they just had DJ come out, play some music to get the crowd hype. But no, It was basically them. That's it.
Dang. I was hoping you would say like, oh, it was fine. Like, you don't need to go. But now I'm thinking I do have to.
Well,
go.
You're a big fan, right?
I know. I am a big fan. I love SZA.
Are they coming in your area?
Yeah. They're playing at SoFi. I
when
think
is that?
For like 2 nights. The end of this month.
Okay. Yeah, they did 2 nights here too. I will say, as you get closer, the ticket prices do drop. So
Okay.
I was able to get it in a different way. So I paid face value, but I didn't have to pay the ticket charges.
Oh, that's
so that helps
nice.
Because aren't they like what, $50 a ticket?
That's what happens. You look at them and you're like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wait, $125, and then they add another $110 with the ticket fees and then the tax and stuff. Like the checkout is where it gets awful.
Yeah. So I know it's risky because I never really did it, but I started looking like at Mets games the day of, and you could get some really good seats like on some of these sites. So it is risky because a lot of times you want to make plans, and especially if you have to travel a little bit. But I think it's something I might do going forward, especially for the day before, the day of, because as it gets closer to game time, they need to get rid of the tickets and the prices drop a bit. So
that's what happened with me when I went to Beyonce.
Oh,
I looked
really?
like 3 days before, and first of all, I was like, well, maybe this is a scam because I've been known to just be a little bit gullible and say, wow,
yeah, you did get
hustled
hustle in New York for those hot dogs.
Whatever. We don't need to talk about it. But I saw these ticket prices and I said, there's no way. And then I looked and they went down. So I went, Beyonce, first of all, you should go to that one. That's amazing. She was incredible.
And were the seats decent?
They were good, 200 level. 200
I was in the 200 level too, and you could
right
see
on the
everything.
Side, I was just it was amazing. Okay.
Yeah, I don't mind.
Right.
I don't mind that. Obviously you want the closer the better, but I'm not someone who is like, oh no, I need to sit here. As long as I could see, like even baseball, like I don't mind sitting at the highest level, especially if I'm behind home plate and I could just see the whole field. I don't mind. I want to just be there.
I'm only really picky about that with sporting events. Yeah. Like concerts, I'm like, okay, because they have all the screens everywhere. So I'm like, oh, okay. But sporting events, I am a little bit.
So you will not sit in the 500 level of a sporting event?
No.
Oh,
no.
I will.
I know you will. But I would just rather, I would rather not. if I can avoid it. But
Yeah, one of the Mets postseason games this past year, I sat like, basically the last row, but it was like right behind home plate. So it's a 500
okay,
level,
yeah, so you
but you're
could
behind home
see.
plate, so you can see
Yeah,
it.
you could see it.
Except that it was freezing and the wind up there is brutal.
Yeah,
But
that's brutal.
hey,
Listen,
if
listen.
your
If the
team gets to the
Mariners,
postseason, you suck it up. You don't care.
exactly. Listen, if the Mariners, who should be, I hope you're listening right now. If the Mariners make the playoffs, that's because when I went to that 18 inning game.
Yeah.
I took my mom. Like we all went as a family.
And you stayed the
we
whole
didn't.
game, right?
Oh yeah. Oh please. Yeah. We weren't leaving, but at some point it did. Adam, it was so brutal because you were just waiting. Like at some point, I turned to my mom and I said, "We're just waiting for Houston to get a hit because it was so obvious that the Mariners weren't going to be able to do it. So we were just waiting for them, the Astros, to be able to do it. And it was But we stayed the whole time. But you're right. If it's a playoff game, I'll sit wherever.
Yeah, I think the longest game I went to was probably 16 innings. But yeah, I don't like to leave games early. I know
Yeah.
people do traffic and all that, but no, I'll just wait. And I guess I'm fortunate I'm not as far from the stadium as maybe some other people, but it kind of does annoy me when people leave like it's a 3-2 game or it's close. It's like
3-2.
really?
Yeah, no.
It's like why bother coming?
Would you have left the Rockies game, that 19-0? Would you have left? I think that's one where I would have left.
I
Depending
probably
on the
would.
inning.
I probably would stay. Let everyone else leave, and then you're not going to deal with traffic
Okay.
anyway.
All right, fair enough. Fair
I
enough.
just love watching the sport, so I don't really want to leave. I want to enjoy every moment, especially if it's a nice day. You want to be
Yeah.
out there. So now,
Yeah.
if I was a Rockies fan, yeah, I probably would have left in the third inning.
They're just there for the vibes anyway. They don't care.
It is so bad right
It's
now.
really bad. I can't believe it.
This
Coors
is the
Field,
worst
though,
baseball
beautiful.
team we have seen in a long time. Like we thought the White Sox were bad last year. This team is worse.
No. Yeah, it's not good. But they don't care.
Let's hope we don't
People
get a
come all
football
the
team
time.
like that.
No. Well, the Jets. Sorry, Jets
No,
fans.
the Jets aren't that bad. I mean, they're bad, but I wouldn't put them in the Colorado Rockies category.
No, we don't have any. Like I can't even say the Panthers because they
No.
turned it around a little bit last year. Who would it be?
I don't. Do we?
I really
have
don't
it?
think we
the
have.
Browns.
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
the
at least they have some. I mean, the Giants were 3-14 last year. Tennessee was 3-14. Cleveland was 3-14.
There's always some hope though. With
yeah,
like
for
the
all of
Giants,
them.
we were watching Malik Neighbors, so we didn't
Yeah.
really care. We were like, oh, okay. But yeah, no, we don't have anyone that's as bad as the
maybe the Saints.
Oh,
Right.
probably. That's pretty brutal. The
But I
Cleveland
don't think
Browns
there's
won
anyone
3
in
games
that.
last year.
I don't think anyone's in that category though. I mean, the Rockies
I don't
are
know.
just
The Cleveland Browns have
non-competitive.
to be close, right?
Yeah,
3 games,
probably.
3
And the
wins?
Saints.
The Titans, honestly, we have to talk about too because they had 3 wins as well.
They did,
were
but
pretty
they
bad.
got Cam Ward and they added some pieces. I mean,
I'm talking
again,
about
they're.
last year. You're right.
But yeah, I mean, the Titans were what, minus 149. The Panthers were minus 193. They had the worst differential,
Yeah.
but it did. I guess that was mostly early in the year because they were a very competitive football team down the stretch. I mean, they hung in with the Chiefs. So wow, if you would have quizzed me on that and said, hey, who had the worst scoring differential? I don't think I would have said the Panthers. Like, I'm shocked to see that.
It was pretty bad at the beginning, though.
That's why, yeah.
It was pretty bad.
It was mostly the beginning of the year because down the stretch, well, look at their first 2 games, 47-10, 26-3. They had a 40-7 game, but down the stretch, so going backwards, they beat the Falcons last week of the season 44-38. Oh, they got destroyed by the Bucs 48-14. But they beat
Yeah.
the Cardinals 36-30. They lost to the Eagles by 8. They lost to the Bucs by 3, the Chiefs by 3. So they were way more competitive. But yeah, a lot of the production
Yeah.
came early in the year.
Look, this dude. No wonder why when people are like, they're just fixing their defense. I mean, they're giving up. Like,
Yeah.
there's no game that they allowed. They allowed 20 points from the Giants. That was the lowest mark.
I believe that was
You
an
had 20
overseas
plus.
game. It was Germany or London.
Was that Germany
It
with the
definitely
Giants?
was an overseas game. I remember.
Okay.
I was
it
like,
was the
really?
Munich game. It was the Munich
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
Okay.
And
Other than that,
I think the Panthers blew that game too. I think they had the lead and they had like a turnover or something. It went to overtime. Yeah, the Giants scored 10
overtime.
points in the fourth quarter,
brutal.
and then the Panthers had the field goal in overtime. So they blew the lead and then won it in overtime.
You know, a ticket that we're going to want to get though this season, or that you're going to want to get this season, is a ticket to the Dallas Cowboys with George Pickens now on the team. You see what you see? Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, look at us. Look at us. You can't say we're not professional, because I do want to get into that though too, because we're talking about teams that are, maybe not as good last season, but the Dallas Cowboys, for what it's worth, from what we talked about over the last couple of weeks, we were surprised. We said, "Wow, I can't believe they came away with only Jaden Blue, and Jaden Blue could be good at the running back position, and they didn't come away with any real wide receiver too." But Adam, what was your initial reaction seeing George Pickens going over there? Listen, we know George Pickens comes with some baggage, and I think that's very obvious in what they were giving up for George Pickens as well, because it was a 2027. What did they get for 26 round
There was a
rounder
third
for
round pick in
2026?
2026 and a
And a
fifth rounder in
rounder, and
2027.
then in exchange, that it's a 6th round pick in 2027 as well, going the other way. But what was your initial reaction? Like, are you excited about this? This really does it felt like a good move almost all around, especially though for George Pickens. Maybe a change of scenery, and you get to play with a better quarterback.
It was a no-brainer for Dallas at this point. I mean, again, you're giving up a third-round pick. We know how talented Pickens is. The temperament and the head case on the field, that's the biggest factor. And you hope, because he's in a contract year, that maybe the change of scenery does help. It's difficult because you see this all the time. When these players are like that, they tend not to change. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been seeing it forever with Draymond Green in basketball. So you hope, though, that Pickens realizes, hey, it's a contract year. The Cowboys are a good team. I'm going to play a significant role there. And I think he even said already that he didn't want a contract extension, that he wants to prove himself. I love hearing that. So, but saying the right things and actually the actions, we all know that, right? We all know people who say things and their actions, they never follow through with it. So the Cowboys, from an NFL perspective, they needed that X receiver. They needed someone on the other side to take away all of the attention on CeeDee Lamb, and also someone that can go deep to stretch the defense, because it was a problem. It was easy to defend the Cowboys. They just had no other threat on the outside. So you need that X receiver. They get him. We know how talented Pickens is. You know, it'll take away double teams from Lamb. You know, a lot of times Pickens can go one-on-one. He can get deep. He can get open. So it made sense. And Dallas must have had this in mind. I don't know how long they've been talking with Pittsburgh. And we also knew, looking at Pittsburgh, we're like, this doesn't make sense. Pickens and Metcalf kind of similar, especially in the Arthur Smith offense too. Like, how is this going to go? So we kind of knew that Pickens was going to be dealt, and the Cowboys made sense. So my guess is maybe what happened was Cowboys were hoping to get Ted McMillan 12th overall. And when that didn't happen, and they looked at this draft class and said, well, there's really no other receivers where they were picking to add to the team, maybe that's where the door opened and they said, all right, we know Pickens is a guy who's available. It's going to cost a 3rd-round pick. Why not do that? Hopefully he comes here, has a great season, enjoys it, and maybe they extend him. But I don't see how you can look at this from a Cowboys perspective and really look at it in a negative way. Have you talked to anyone that doesn't like it at all?
No. And I think it's even not even from the Cowboys. I think it's a win all around, right? I think Dak Prescott is a huge winner in this. I think that DK Metcalf is a big winner in this. And I think George Pickens, for a change of scenery, he just turned 24 years old. We have to remember that he's still young. And I know when you look at his we can just look at 2024, right? It was underwhelming, to say the least. 59 receptions, 900 yards, only 3 touchdowns. And he was just getting, it was just negative attention more so with George Pickens than anything else. So I think anytime you can get a change of scenery, and you're hoping, the only thing that I'm hoping for is that the only thing I heard, what reactions to this were that Mike Tomlin has a track record of knowing when to let receivers go before they really start to collapse with just, and that's outside of the game of football, just having that negative attention. He really knows when it's time to just let them go. So that's the only thing you'll have to look at. But to George Pickens' credit, like he is still a good receiver, and now you get to pair him with a good quarterback in Dak Prescott. Like you said, he's going to be able to stretch the field, and that's going to help Dak. I think Dak was the biggest winner out of all of this, because now not only do you get CeeDee Lamb, and we can talk about Jake Ferguson, but you get George Pickens, who is a clear-cut wide receiver too. So I was excited about it, and I didn't hear any negative things besides, maybe Tomlin knows something, and he's just trying to unload that contract and move him elsewhere because he just knows that it might not get a little bit better. But that's something we're just going to have to wait and see with.
Yeah, I saw that as well. I mean, one of the receivers they left out that did go on to be productive after he left was Emmanuel Sanders.
Yeah.
Also, a lot of those guys were playing with Ben Roethlisberger and then saw a drop. I guess Juju Smith-Schuster's the one that's perplexing because he was young, but maybe he just benefited from Antonio Brown getting all the attention. That was one of the criticisms when Juju left. It was like, okay, he put up good numbers, but is he going to be able to do it as the one? Mm-hmm. And he clearly couldn't. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely risk with Pickens from an attitude perspective. Now, he is saying the right things since he's been traded,
yes,
which is what you want to see. But now your actions have to prove it on the football field. But the Cowboys could not go into the season with the roster they had and expect to be a playoff team. They just couldn't. We knew it was not going to work. So you have to take a chance. There was not any significant receivers to get in free agency. The draft, it just didn't pan out for them, and this wasn't the best receiver class or the one guy that they wanted. They couldn't get at 12, so they had to do something. And to get a receiver like Pickens at his age, to me, you take the chance. And there's a possibility it doesn't work out and he doesn't re-sign, but you have to try and do something now, especially with Dak Prescott at quarterback. He needs help. He's not one of these quarterbacks that's going to elevate other players. There's Patrick Mahomes can elevate everyone else. Dak Prescott's not in that category. He needs weapons around him, and there just wasn't enough. So to me, you had to make this trade if you're the Cowboys. You gave up a third-round pick, which can be valuable, but Pickens, we know, can perform better than a third-round pick. And there's really not a lot of pressure on him either. I mean, this is Lamb's offense. He could come in. It's like, hey, just win your one-on-one battles, catch the passes when you're open, and he'll get opportunities for sure. And he might even get more targets here than he would have as the one in Pittsburgh. That's the other thing, too, because the way the Cowboys are shaping up, to me, they're going to go back to being a pass-heavy offense, especially now with the addition of Pickens. So we saw flashes last year from Pickens, because I remember many weeks I was playing his props. I'm like, wow, they have it so low. It was like, in the low 50s, and he was consistently going over it every single week. And then it slowed down. I don't remember. Did he get hurt at some point late in the year? I forgot. Yeah, he did. He missed, right? Did he miss some time?
I thought he did, but I didn't know if that was more.
But he had a stretch where he was consistently, like this stretch here where he had 53, 111, 74, 91, 89. So, he had 103 targets last year. He could get a similar amount this year and maybe more if they become that pass heavy. We know CeeDee Lamb's going to get 170, 180, but he's the second guy in this offense. He's going to get targets.
Hey, we've got the projections. Let's go through them, because I definitely want to see like where we are now going to be ranking George Pickens. Like how much up the ranks are we going to move him? And same with DK Metcalf. I think there's a whole other conversation to be had with DK Metcalf and what this means for him and the runway that he has for 2025. We're going to do that and go through more rookie wide receiver projections as well, coming up next. It's never too early to think about dominating your fantasy football leagues. That's why you're listening to us on the beginning of May, middle of May, whatever it is. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you right here. Excited to be here with you. Going through, I just want to continue going through, this trade with George Pickens, because it was a big shakeup just for the NFL landscape and more importantly for fantasy football, and looking at what he could do for the 2025 season and where we have him ranked as well. So I will say right now, George Pickens on the website, fantasylife.com, and everyone can go and check that out at fantasylife.com. Dwayne does a great job updating those rankings and projections really, really quickly. All of our rankers do. But right now, projected for 113 targets, 71 receptions, and 1,033 receiving yards, 6.7 receiving touchdowns. That's pretty good.
That is a good season.
That is a good season.
I think a lot of people would be happy if they drafted Pickens if they get those numbers. Again, we know he's an elite deep threat, and he opens things up underneath. So, yeah, I think he's someone that I'm interested in for fantasy this year. I mean, I think we're always interested, but the problem with Pittsburgh obviously was the lack of aggressiveness in the offense, and especially with Arthur Smith there. So, definitely a risk because of the attitude problems, but you never know. I mean, maybe it's eye-opening for him. He needed a fresh start. It wasn't working in Pittsburgh. That's the bottom line.
And I think when you look at it, I mean, CeeDee Lamb, I saw some back and forth, but he still is like the wide receiver 3, right behind Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. Like those are the only two. And when you look at him, I still just think, for George Pickens, moving him, he was around wide receiver 40 in the rankings, and he's been moved up around wide receiver 31. Which I think is fair, right? So that puts him ahead of guys like Rome Odunze, Jerry Jeudy, but it still puts him behind more of those clear-cut number 1 options, Adam. So when, I still have DK Metcalf ahead of him just by a little bit there. I still have Cortland Sutton ahead of him. Calvin Ridley is another one where I'm just like, okay, these are clear-cut wide receiver 1s. But for George Pickens kind of going around that wide receiver 30 range, I think, and with the projections that we just said, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, that's about the right spot, and you would love to get him as your wide receiver 3. Maybe you go wide receiver heavy, and he's your wide receiver 4, even better. Nice. But, yeah, those projections, like I said, I thought he would definitely have more targets than he had last year with Pittsburgh. I know we did miss some time, but Pittsburgh was a team that just slow pace, ran the ball, didn't throw a lot. So even with him being the one there, there were some weeks it was good, but we know – especially if the Cowboys defense isn't very good, they might have to be involved in a lot of shootouts. And Dallas is just going to pass more than what was going on with Pittsburgh. Especially, remember, Fields was in there at quarterback for the first 6 weeks.
6 weeks, yeah.
So not a lot of passing there. So it's just a different offense, a better offense where even though he is not the one, and it is CeeDee Lamb's offense, there's plenty of targets for him because Dallas will be pass heavy.
Yeah, and DK Metcalf, let me go to the other side of this because I know we've broken down George Pickens a lot here, but it's almost the same, Adam. 117 targets, so really close to what George Pickens is going to get over there in Dallas. 72 receptions, 1,027 receiving yards, and then 5.8 receiving touchdowns. And this is all hinging on the idea, and I do want to say this, that Aaron Rodgers goes over there. So this is kind of hoping that Aaron Rodgers is going over there and is the quarterback for 2025. But again, we just don't know yet. I still think, though, Metcalf, now with George Pickens out of the picture, is more of that low-end wide receiver 2. Going into it, it was like, okay, these are wide receiver 3s with both of them on the same team, but now a low-end wide receiver 2 for DK Metcalf seems like that's about the right spot. So ahead of DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., because the target competition now with George Pickens, you don't have to think about it. He is out of the picture, and it's just waiting to see, Adam, if Aaron Rodgers is going to go over there. But I do like the projections, and I do think that low-end wide receiver 2 production could come now because he's got way less competition with Pickens out there.
Yeah, a lot is going to depend on the quarterback situation, and Metcalf has been drafted higher than what he's returned over the last few years. Like, we keep waiting for those big seasons that we saw in his second year and then the third year with the 12 touchdowns, and it just hasn't happened. So, but in Pittsburgh, he's the one, and you just hope that they pass enough for him to get his production. But usually when they do pass, he's going to be heavily targeted. So if it's Aaron Rodgers, you probably feel better about it at this point. I think we're still all waiting, but we all are expecting Rodgers to go there. I don't know how long he's going to make us wait. Maybe he's waiting for the schedule to drop and see if he likes the schedule. I don't know.
He's just like, where am I going? Maybe he wants a couple of the, the overseas games. Like maybe that's what he wants. I don't know. What over under? What do you think? July? Like he's got to be there for training camp, right?
Can we say? I would hope the end of this month, but early June. Could you imagine? Like he just waits and waits and he says, you know what? I'm retiring.
Is that not? I mean, that's in the cards though. Is it not? It has to be.
It is based on the way he spoke with McAfee. I think he left the window open for that. Again, though, seeing Pittsburgh's lack of activity, I would think that they believe he's coming there, but who knows? I mean, it's always a topic. I will say one thing though about Pickens that is a little concerning is Brian Schottenheimer, this first time as a head coach. I mean, Tomlin had trouble handling Pickens, so
Yeah,
that is a little worrisome.
Yeah, it'll be fine.
But
We'll
you know,
just get some good quotes post-game,
it's never quiet in Dallas anyway. So
No, you guys kind of like a little
That's
bit of
always
drama.
something.
Like we never expected to be like just a clean season from the Dallas Cowboys. But Brian,
never
Brian's
is.
got his work cut out for him. It's exciting to look at him though. At least they're making moves.
You
know
hope
what I
though
mean?
someone like CeeDee Lamb, takes him under his wing and helps him
Yeah.
out. You hope some of the leaders there to say, "Hey, look, you have a real opportunity to put up numbers here. You're in a contract here. You can get a big payday. You just need to control the temper, be a good teammate on the field, and don't worry, you're going to get your stats. You're going to get paid." So you just hope that. I know you like to look at the optimistic angle for everything.
Yeah. I'm so optimistic.
I'm trying to be optimistic though with
Yeah,
Pickens
it's
here,
good.
even though I'm a
Listen.
realist with Dallas. I feel better about that, but I still think they probably at maybe the third best team in the division still. I mean, they're not better than
Yeah.
Philly. Washington obviously had a really good year, and they have a top-notch quarterback. So, but at least this trade improves Dallas. Now you got to go win football games.
Yeah, let's get some wins here for Adam, so that we don't have a rejoin that says don't let your weekend get ruined by the Cowboys. or
Week
whatever
5,
it
we'll be
is.
playing that.
Gosh, but I agree though. I'm always optimistic, so I just think with a change of scenery, I think a lot can come with that. And you go to an organization, not that the Steelers have a rich history, but a history like the Dallas Cowboys is good. And like you said, CeeDee Lamb is
Really?
over there.
What history?
Yeah, I'm trying.
Oh, you're
Adam,
eliminating
I'm
the last
trying.
25 years?
Yeah, no, minus the 25 years. And I'm trying to just say that maybe CeeDee Lamb comes up, and like you said, helps out there. But on the other side, Adam, I do think, Mike Tomlin is a great head coach. And if he wasn't able to kind of get that under control, like you just said, it's new head coach Schottenheimer in there. So I'm going back and forth on it. But
yeah, I
fantasy-
mean, look, what you hope is that he goes to Dallas. We've all been through this, right? Whenever you have a new start, you feel refreshed. So you hope that happens.
Exactly. That's what we're going to hope for. I've got some more rookie wide receiver projections from Dwayne McFarland just dropped on the website, fantasylife.com. So I want to go through especially Travis Hunter, because now, Adam, I think we should be drafting Travis Hunter more than ever. We're going to talk about it coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans, sure, the NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change, and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. All right, Adam, talking about projections, we just went through George Pickens, we went through DK Metcalf and what we can expect from them, but Dwayne McFarland also has the updated projections for all rookie wide receivers. I know last week we went through the running backs. Let me start with someone that is you're either going to draft him or you're not. People like him or they don't for fantasy football in 2025, but Travis Hunter, right here for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Floor projection 9.4, median projection 12.2, ceiling projection though 18.4 fantasy points. So he has a projected 75% route participation, which is between wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 over there on the website at fantasylife.com. And listen, we know, Adam, this could dip if he plays more defense than offense. I know that they came out after the draft, said that they are going to work with him more on offense to start, but I know he's getting some defensive reps, I believe this coming week is what they said. So again, we're still very uncertain about what the future could look like with Travis Hunter. He's cheaper than I think he will be by, let's say, August, late July heading into August, September. But I'm still sprinkling him into some of my drafts and saying, all right, if the best does happen and he does play 75, 80, 85% route participation and we see him more on offense, that's going to be huge for fantasy football.
It will be, and I think that's what everyone is trying to figure out, and he will be a guy where the price rises, especially as positive reports come out. The one thing that you want to see is better route running. He was able to win by athleticism in college. So that's the one thing you want to see him improve on. But you got to remember, too, he wasn't even on offense all the time. He had to work
No.
on the defensive side too. So the more opportunity and time he gets to work on the craft as a wide receiver should only help him. And this does project as a team that's going to probably be playing from behind a lot, bad defense, and they'll be passing a lot. So, yeah, Brian Thomas is there. But, no, you have to be optimistic on Hunter. And I do think he is a guy. The price will only go up. So if you are doing some drafts now, you probably want to get him at an affordable price because I think it only rises, especially as we see him playing offense so much.
He's wide receiver around 25, depending on where you are right now. But I know that might be overpriced to some people, but I think his ceiling, when you look at it in the projections, is just as strong as Tedero McMillan over there for the Carolina Panthers, which we're going to talk about. But really, with Travis Hunter, you're betting on upside, and you're just hoping that it really works out. I can see him go, get into the wide receiver 20, maybe even break the top 20 when we get closer to the actual NFL season. But again, those projections are at FantasyLife.com. So I want everyone to go and check him out because Dwayne does a great job over there. Now, Adam, it is time. It's our favorite time of the day. Time for that Fantasy Life water cooler coming up next. Fantasy football is life. You already know what time it is, though. Time for that water cooler, fantasylife.com. That's the direction I have to point you in, though. That's where you can get our newsletter in your inbox 7 days a week, still 100% free. So make sure you go and sign up for that over there at fantasylife.com. And same with all of our articles, still 100% free. So make sure you go and check it out. Every single article that we reference here, you can get at Fantasy Life. And we do a great job over there. We're biased, though, Adam, but got to send everyone in that direction. And just off the top, you heard all of the the play-by-plays just now, and you heard all of the highlights. But Derek Carr did retire. Just want to make sure we hit that one more time here, Adam, in the water cooler. Make sure everyone knows the news and notes that we hit in that first hour. But retiring after 11 seasons because of that shoulder injury, they have already said that it's going to be a quarterback quote. I'm going to do like air quotes quarterback competition between Spencer Rattler and Tyler Shuck here. But they obviously went out, drafted Tyler Shuck in this year's 2025 NFL draft. So they might have had a little bit of a plan, and that's the only thing that we can hope with them. It feels now at this point, Adam, do you feel like it'll be more Tyler Shuck at week one starter than Spencer Rattler? Because if you would have asked me before, and Derek Carr, like, let's just say he wasn't able to come back until halfway through the season, I was still saying that Spencer Rattler would be the one to get the start. But now I might be changing my tune here a little bit.
Yeah, I would lean toward Shuck, but I'm sure they're going to open it up, quarterback competition. But they drafted him 40th overall. They clearly liked him. We were hearing that leading up to the draft. I mean, there's definitely questions about him, but he's going to have every opportunity. So right now, I would think he's the guy. Is there a chance Rattler is the quarterback to open the year? A couple games? Sure. Mm-hmm. But I think if you're saying who's going to have the most starts this year, I think it's Shuck.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we updated the Fantasy Life rankings, but if you're looking at Tyler Shuck and thinking like, this could be a sleeper, he's still QB 28, Adam. So it's not one of those things where we've said, yeah, let's push him into the top 20, and let's hope that there's talent there and that they saw what they liked and that he's going to be able to come out and command this offense. Like, it's not there. We said super flex, QB 3, not your second quarterback. It's your QB 3, and maybe there is a path where Tyler Shuck just kind of excels in this offense and that he's able to find connections with Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed and Jawan Johnson, but don't bank on it, especially this early. We're talking QB3 and Superflex, and that's about it right now.
Yeah, and that's the only place you're going to draft them at this point. Yeah. A lot of people like to take that third quarterback in a Superflex league for the bye weeks or have him on the bench, and that's where he's going to go. Maybe we're all surprised and Kellen Moore comes in and this offense is better because, again, they do have some weapons here. And at that point, you would pick them up off the waiver wire. But right now, there's no need to draft them in leagues where you start one quarterback.
Yep. So, again, Derek Carr retired. That was the big news just yesterday, but one that we definitely have to go through. And if you want the full fantasy recap, make sure you go to fantasylife.com for him and for the George Pickens trade over to Dallas. We did a great job over there. Ian Hartitz wrote a great breakdown, not only of George Pickens, but what it means for DK Metcalf, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, of course. So make sure you go over there at fantasylife.com. All right, let's go through some other pieces of news here, Adam, because we we actually did get quite a few this week. I just wanted to mention the Matthew Stafford finalized contract because I don't think we had gone through those numbers because they had started that months ago. And he was, of course, in conversation in the rumors of, hey, there might be a trade. Matthew Stafford might go to another team, but no. According to NFL Network's Ian Rappaport, they were able to finalize the deals of his contract, agreed to a 2-year, $84 million deal. And this is a huge pay increase from the 2-year, $58 million contract that they were previously going to pay him. So he's got $44 million this season. But Adam, it just feels like more and more when you read through this contract, it's a year-to-year situation now with Matthew Stafford. And that's the one thing, that's the one takeaway. Like, we can talk about the money if we want, but the one takeaway that I want to make sure that we talk about is that it's year-to-year with Matthew Stafford. They've got 2 first-round picks for 2026 because they made some trades in this year's draft. We know that it's the Rams. They always say, screw those picks. We don't really care. We don't need to use them. So it could be one of those things where they do the exact same thing next year. But 2 first-round picks in a quarterback class next year that is supposed to be way better than this year's. And Matthew Stafford, we talk about this offense a lot. I still love Matthew Stafford in this offense for 2025. I think this could be a team that goes pretty far because we've talked about them in the playoffs. I mean, they were close to maybe pulling something off there, but the weather, came down to it, and they were just outplayed. But this is one of those things where, year to year with Matthew Stafford, we could be looking at his potential last season, but we just don't know yet.
Yeah, and that makes sense, right? He's 37 years old, and they did have an opportunity last year to make a run. They got hot towards the end of the season. Division was wide open, and they actually probably gave Philadelphia their best challenge in the postseason, only losing by 6 and had the ball late with an opportunity to potentially take the lead and just couldn't get it done. And Stafford had a really good game there. 324 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, didn't turn it over, did take 5 sacks, and that's always going to be a concern, especially against a top-notch defense like Philadelphia, but they were there. So, you bring in Davante Adams, you have Puka Nacua. We know what this team is, and again, it's great for fantasy because they just put the ball in the hands of the players we want for fantasy. There's not 10 guys catching a pass. We know that it's Kyron Williams, Puka Nacua, and Davante Adams. So Stafford, though, for fantasy, it's just not there because they were so successful running the ball. And it's crazy because you're like, oh, we're drafting Adams and Puka both in the top 20. So what about the quarterback? But there's just not going to be enough volume there, and he doesn't run at all. So it all comes down to passing touchdowns. And even if he had 25, 26, it's just not enough when you look at the other quarterbacks across the league. So he's fine for the receivers we want in fantasy, but for him, you're just not going to get the numbers that you want. I don't even love him as a super flex.
I don't either. I was going to say the exact same thing. I don't. And the projections, they just kind of back up that kind of idea as well, because passing yards, we've got him 3,886 and then 24 touchdowns on the year. That's our initial projections for him.
Yeah, and if you get 12 to Puka, 8 to Adams, then you're happy. Then the other 4 to whoever.
We've talked about that. I like Davante Adams. Only Jamar Chase and Brian Thomas Jr. scored more fantasy points than Adams during the final 6 weeks of the season. If people want to say that he's washed, I get it, because the age cliff, you always just wait and you're like, okay, it's gonna happen. It's gonna come sooner rather than later. But until they show us, Adam, that it's right there, I don't hate it. And what about Terrence Ferguson for you? I know we've talked a little bit about the Colston Lovelands and the Tyler Warrens and their landing spots, but when you look at the depth chart with Tyler Higbee, he's entering a contract year, so it could be go one of two ways. But he's coming off an injury as well, where you say, okay, maybe they drafted their future in Terrence Ferguson. Not to say to go out of your way and draft him, but if you're in some of those dynasty rookie superflex drafts right now, he could be, especially those tight end premium ones, he could be one that you could get a little bit later that could jump Tyler Higbee in the depth chart.
Yeah, or could be someone we're talking off the waiver wire in redraft leagues at some point during the season. They do like Higbee, but injuries have always been a factor. I mean, they'll use the tight end a little bit because they usually don't have a third receiver that commands a lot of targets. So again, they're one of the teams that you just love it because it's concentrated and you know where the football is going to go. That's the best part about that team. And yeah, with Adams too, the one thing about Adams is he's a very smart receiver as well. So that should help limit any of the physical limitations.
Yeah.
And usually it's the really big receivers that tail off pretty quickly. You know, the Julio Jones, Andre Johnson, those types. But yeah, you just never know. I mean, he's 32. And again, he finished the season really strong because I don't think a lot of people saw that coming.
I didn't. No, because I had 0% of him last year, and I remember
Yeah, but
talking
see,
to
that's
you, and I was like,
neither did I.
like,
But I think but that was with the thought that he was going to be with Vegas. Yes, there was insane trade rumors, but you can't always go based on that. You have to draft at the beginning of the year, like, well, he's with Vegas, so just didn't like the quarterback situation and didn't think the same amount of volume that he got the previous year would be there. So it just, the people who had him got fortunate because if you remember when he first got to the Jets, it was not a good start. Like
no, it took a couple weeks.
It took like 5 weeks to really get going. I mean, the first game was 3 for 30, 4 for 54. Okay, 7 for 91 and a touch, 6 for 31. So 3 of the first 4 weeks were not great. Then 6 for 72, and then that's where the touchdowns started to happen. So basically half the year, because he also missed time with injury if he had the hamstring injury, then was traded. So basically you didn't have him for a month, and then when he first got to the Jets, there weren't great weeks. So you had to have a really good team where you were able to get into the playoffs, and then he helped carry you potentially to a championship. But I wonder how many teams actually had him that won a championship or made the playoffs, because there wasn't much production until basically December. I mean, that's a long time to have a player on your roster. Again, there were like 2 or 3 good weeks in that span, but you're talking basically 3 months with 3 or 4 usable games and then a stretch where he didn't play.
Yeah, you had to be patient. I am curious. I can look that up. I'll look that up during the break and see how many winning championship teams had a Devontae Adams on theirs. But
because
honestly,
you had to overcome him for most of the season.
Saying. That's what I'm saying. You had to be so patient, and he was probably just sitting on your bench for most of that time because you were just quite frankly just a little bit over it. But I don't know, looking at the Rams too, like this is going to be an expensive team to draft this year, besides, not counting Matthew Stafford, but you've got Kyron, you've got Puka, you've got Devontae Adams. Like the Devontae right now I think is ranked at Fantasy Life. I mean, he's wide receiver 16. He's projected for 133 targets, and then wide receiver 4 for Puka, 147 targets.
Yeah, like you see, like I said, almost all the targets
crazy.
Are going to go in the direction of those two, which you love. And look, we've seen it work. We've seen Cooper Kupp, Puka
he's been able to do it.
Yeah, have success. We know Stafford; he'll lock in on his guys. So
yeah, he's got him.
Yeah, so both those guys will be productive.
We've got unfortunate news, though, next up here in the water cooler. Again, fantasylife.com to go and check out we write about all this news over there, 100% free for those articles. But just wanted to mention to Jonathan Brooks, dynasty managers especially, unfortunate, but he is out already for the 2025 season. So the Panthers placed him on the unable to perform list, physically unable to perform list. So PUP, which means he's going to miss the entire 2025 season. We remember he's recovering from the second ACL injury to the same knee in 13 months, Adam. It was so brutal. And I know you and I talked a lot last season. Our advice was just to be careful. If you had an IR spot and you were drafting, we said, you know what, if you want to take a chance on Jonathan Brooks, go ahead. But I just remember week in and week out, we were always getting close to Jonathan Brooks starting the season, and they pushed it as far as they could with him, unfortunately. So for dynasty managers, you're just holding on and hoping that, he takes the whole 2025 season, is able to fully recover. But he's only managed 3 games, and he had 9 carries for 22 yards, 3 receptions for 23 yards in those 3 games. So that means really Chuba Hubbard is still the RB1. He was paid that way as well. You got Rico Dowdle in there now who can hold down the backfield as well. But Hubbard last year, Adam, 1,195 yards on 250 carries, 10 touchdowns, average 4.8 yards per carry as well. So he's one that we're going to really lock into at drafts. He's going to be expensive, but again, unfortunate news though for Jonathan Brooks.
It is terrible, and Brooks was even going ahead of Hubbard in some drafts last year. And like anything, you just want to learn lessons. And I was saying it before last year, you have to be so careful with these players coming off injuries because everyone looks at the optimistic side of it. Like, oh, there was talk that Brooks potentially could be back week 5, week 6.
Yep.
And people were drafting him 7th, 8th round. And I was like, what are you doing? Even Nick Chubb, same thing. And again, love Nick Chubb. Pretty much drafted him almost every year. Did not want any part of him last year. Another guy. Now, there are going to be examples where guys come back in the range that they're telling us. Yeah. But more often than not, go on the pessimistic side. And those are 2 examples from last year. I mean, Brooks was the prime one. As you said, pushing back. He didn't make his debut to November 24th. There were people who drafted him in the 7th, 8th round. And the problem with that is when you draft them there, you tend to be more patient. You tend to wait because you spent a decent pick. You're like, oh, well, he'll be back next week. Oh, okay, the week after. And you keep waiting, and then the bye weeks come. So just be on the side of caution. Don't be aggressive on these players coming off significant injuries because a lot of times there's setbacks. They don't heal in the proper amount of time. And I just see it all the time. You're better off being on the pessimistic side. It goes for every fantasy sport, but especially football where the season is so short. You want to get off to a good start. You know, we often say, oh, it's only week 3, you're 0-3, it's fine. And we've seen many teams start 0-3, 0-4, come back. But when you're spending a 7th, 8th round pick on a guy and he doesn't come back till November, that's a problem. So you could say, well, they told us he was going to be back and I expected week 5, week 6. That's on you. You got to understand that sometimes players return way later than projected. So just be very cautious with that. Players coming off injuries. You can, obviously we have all summer and you can wait, but just because they say, yeah, we expect them back around week 5, week 6, I would add a few weeks to that. Because you got to be prepared for when that player doesn't come back. So I took Brooks in one league last year, and it goes back to what you were saying. That was my home league where we have IR spots. So I said, all right, I'll take him. I think it was round 9, maybe the 9-10 turn. So I said, all right, I'll figure it out. And I even remember someone who was picking after me. They said, damn, I wanted to take him. So in that situation, I can replace him. So I'm not really counting on him for much. But in a lot of leagues, there's no IR spots. So you're waiting on him. And then even Nick Chubb, he didn't come back till October 20th. Yep. So that's about, week 7, week 8? But even so, he was not good at all. He was not good the entire season, 3.3 yards per carry. So you just got to be really careful with these players coming off significant injuries. Just don't draft them so early. And there'll always be someone in drafts that are going to take them because they're optimistic like you.
Yeah. Okay. I drafted 0% Jonathan Brooks, 0%
Because you probably heard me saying it all the time. You're like,
when it comes to
I'm trying to drill it in your head and the people listening.
But especially when it comes to players coming back from injury, like you just have to take it with a grain of salt. And like the optimism, even from me, who is the most optimistic person or tries to be, like you just have to kind of be careful with it. And the thing, I think, Adam, the same thing's going to happen with Nick Chubb this season because Andrew Berry comes out. He said it's increasingly unlikely that Nick Chubb is going to return to the Browns in 2025. And I could see him jump over to a team and we're going to have, I can see it now, Adam, where we have these same conversations. If he goes to, I don't even know where he would land right now. The Chicago Bears, the Kansas City Chiefs. I could see the conversation, full circle coming around again, where people say, well, it's still Nick Chubb. He's now on a different team. It might be better, but I could see it happening because that news just came out a couple days ago where they said it's increasingly unlikely, and we kind of knew that for the Browns, but it's people will see the name and they'll say it's Nick Chubb and he's 29 and it could happen.
And I think I saw some footage circling social media about him like leaping over things or something.
Look, he loves to post those workout videos.
Right. And that's great.
Best shape of his life.
Doesn't matter for football. Look, I am rooting for him because I thought he's one of the best pure running backs in the NFL.
Oh, 1,000%. It was sad last year when it sucked because it is still Nick Chubb, but it just wasn't. It feels like the better days might be behind him than in front of him.
It's very difficult. He's 29 years old. Okay, I'm definitely rooting for him wherever he goes, but it's going to be really difficult because missing that much time, it just takes away a lot of your athletic ability. And we saw it last year, 3.3 yards per carry. Like he didn't have a game over 60 yards. It was really bad. And I know the Browns weren't good, but look, there's always outliers. I hope Nick Chubb is that guy, but it's tough to be optimistic regardless of where he lands.
Let's talk about some of the sophomore quarterbacks, because I wrote an article at fantasylife.com. Who could be this year's CJ Stroud? A little bit spicy, Adam, but we're going to talk through some of the second-year quarterbacks if we think they could fall in line with a CJ Stroud second-year type season. We're going to go through those names coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you right here on this Sunday. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your weekend. We're getting you ready for all things fantasy football in the 2025 season. Adam, right around the corner too, by the way. Like, I know it's only May, but then it's going to be, mid-July, end of July. We're going to get in August. We're going to be like, hey, it's here. We're ready to go.
Oh, it flies by. Everyone, if people are listening out there now, they're like, oh, it's just me. No. You need to always... Look, anything that you are great at in life, you have to put in the time and preparation. So get started doing these best ball drafts. It just, you learn the player pool, and it gets you in that mode, right? Yes, a lot of these drafts now, you can do 2-hour clock, 1-hour clock, 8-hour clock, whatever. Obviously, you could do one with 30 seconds, but I like to do some slow drafts to kind of get immersed, get started, do those. And then you know how it is. Once you start drafting, you get the itch. You're like, we love to draft. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's why people do so many best ball leagues because, you got to be cognizant of how many you're going to do with Fab, right? Because we know it takes a lot of time and then you have to go through the waiver wire in every league. And that's the most challenging part in setting lineups. But people love to draft and you want to get different exposure to different players. But, the sooner you start doing it, the better. And it'll just get you ready for your big drafts, whether they're late August, early September. But we all know time flies and you're sitting here and you're like, oh, it's just May 11th. It's Mother's Day. Before you know it, we're going to be here. It's going to be August. And you don't want to be in that position where you're like, oh, wow, my draft's a month away and I haven't really started anything. You don't want to be that person.
Listen, that's why we're here, though. We're here to help. We're here to do it. We're here to break it all down for you. And that's why, I had fun. This article's at fantasylife.com. And it was fun because I did want to look at, who could have a CJ Stroud type season. But Adam, I specified and I made sure people knew we were talking about the second year of CJ Stroud, the sophomore season from him, because talk about a player with two very, very different starts, 2 different seasons to the career, right? Because CJ Stroud in 2023, that's the performance that made everyone believe in him, right? You said, okay, you've got a new head coach, you've got a rookie quarterback. They had an 11-6 record, and they only had 11 total wins combined in the past 3 seasons before drafting CJ Stroud. And he came up and he was amazing. That's all we can say about it, right? He finished as the QB9 in total fantasy points, completed 63.9% of his passes, a little over 4,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. That was the more amazing part. And he came in and he finished Adam QB9, but coming into the drafts, going into the 2024 season, he was going off the board as QB5. And it was QB5, QB6. And so that's what I wanted to say with this article is not only who had a decent, rookie season, but whose ADP could be a little bit overpriced for the production you might get in 2025, because then we know what happened with CJ Stroud. And a lot of it, when you look at it, you can say it was injuries, it was the offensive line, but overall, Adam, he finished as the QB 18 and averaged just 13 fantasy points per game last season. He was someone that honestly, you and I had very, very long conversations about you should drop CJ Stroud. There were points in the year where we just said, this isn't worth it. And if you were able to do that and maybe pick up a Baker Mayfield off your waiver wire, depending on how deep your league was, some leagues, we know there's not many good options and you might have had to just roll with it. But that's the thing where I looked at, Jaden, I will say Jaden Daniels wasn't really one that I gave too much into, because I do believe Jaden Daniels, what we saw last season, is what we're going to get this year. But it was interesting. Bo Nix's current ADP is QB 10, and I don't think that's really egregious when we talk about CJ Stroud being QB 5. But honestly, Caleb Williams is QB 8 right now. Current ADP QB 8. So that could be one. Both of those guys are the ones that I really dove into and that interested me. Between can they outperform that ADP, or is it a little bit too rich right now going into this season?
Well, yeah. So I was very concerned with Stroud last year, mainly because of the price. So I didn't draft him anywhere. You were basically, you needed 30 touchdowns from him for him to be successful. And I think people looked at the weapons around him, and do this with every rookie in every sport. Oh, wow. Okay. So the rookie year, 23 touchdowns, 5 interceptions in 15 games. All right. He's going to get better. And it doesn't always work that way. A lot of the problem was the offensive line. He was sacked 52 times, 38 in 15 games his rookie year. So that affected him in a big way. You could see it. There were times pressure wasn't there. He perceived pressure was there and rushed. It gets in your head. The other factor with him is he really doesn't run much. So when you look at other quarterbacks like a Bo Nix, he can run a little bit. So I think you do take that into account. But you do have to, there's film out on these guys now. And these NFL defensive coordinators have an entire offseason, especially if it's a divisional opponent, to kind of look at these quarterbacks and say, okay, what's their weakness that wasn't exposed last year? So I know you mentioned Jaden Daniels in there, and you had to.
I had to. There's just no way.
Right. With him, though, it's just the rushing prowess is so strong that even if he does come back as a passer, the rushing is going to probably help him.
Exactly.
Again, Nix has a little bit of that too. He had 430 rushing yards. But you could see that. Now, Caleb Williams obviously is the one that you can see both sides of it, because we've talked about it. That's it. This is all. It's Caleb Williams. There's no excuses anymore. It's time to be productive. You can blame the offensive line last year. He took a lot of sacks. A lot of them were on him, but the offensive line wasn't good. But you got an offensive-minded coach coming in now, and a lot of weapons were added to this team, right? Colston Loveland, Luther Burden. I mean, they upgraded the offensive line in a big way too. So there's no excuses, and you're starting to see his price be pretty high. I think
he's expensive.
Yeah.
And that's why it was interesting too in the article, because I had to put a little bit of a caveat in there where I said, listen, Caleb Williams didn't have a great rookie season. So it's a little bit different from when we're comparing him to CJ Stroud, because CJ Stroud came out, was amazing in his rookie year. And Caleb Williams, I believe he still finished QB 14, QB 15, I believe, but he was sacked so many times. It was just, and there was just nothing there. He was leading 68 sacks last season. That was the third most in NFL history. So we're not looking at him where he had a great season and now his ADP is rising. We're looking at him where you have a new head coach who, coming from an offense that we always wanted a piece of, you've got new weapons, like you said, and you still have Rome Odunze, you still have DJ Moore, you still have DeAndre Swift. And they're expecting a huge jump, which I think we all should be, because you can't do that. And they went ahead and they made sure to do better with their offensive line. So they're going in there and they're making sure that they make all the changes. Ben Johnson wants to make all those changes head on and tackle all of those problems. But he finished last season little over 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, which was a team rookie record, by the way. But, the hype heading into the season, QB8, if he continues to climb too, like if we get into August, Adam, and he starts to get into QB7 territory, it's already a little bit expensive for me right now, but I understand the hype, because you think that if we thought last year, Adam, that he was set up for full success because of the weapons he had, this blows it 100% out of the water, because now he has even more.
Yeah, you have the coach coming in because that was one of the problems that we looked at last year. We're like, the coaching is not here. And there were even talks about that, not watching film and a lot of factors. But everything that you could ask for as a quarterback was done by Chicago. Bringing in an offensive-minded coach, bolstering the offensive line, adding more weapons. It's all there. So this is basically saying the price is saying he's going to be successful. You mentioned, I think you said what, QB 14, but that was
14,
total
15.
points. Yeah, points per game. I'm looking at in 6 points for a passing touchdown. Was 19th. So
Yeah.
again, it was peaks and valleys, right? He had some really good games and some really bad games. And the positive was, well, he didn't throw interceptions. Well, because he didn't take as many chances. He took too many sacks. He couldn't throw those interceptions. I mean, it's great. Oh, yeah, rookie quarterback, barely throwing interceptions. But a lot of it was holding the ball too long. And those interceptions that might have been thrown by another rookie resulted in sacks, which could be just as detrimental, especially on a, 2nd and 10, and now you're sacked, and now it's 3rd and 21, right? That's almost as bad because especially with the way that offense was being run, you really didn't have a shot for a first down, and you were punting it anyway to the other team. So, yeah, there's a lot of optimism here for Caleb Williams. Again, you could understand why, but you're paying for everything to work.
Exactly. And that's why when I wrote about Bo Nix, I was like, listen, this isn't as bad. He's going off the board as QB 10. So I said, there's not, like, it's still risky, right? And it depends on if he continues to climb this offseason and going into July and August. But he finished the season as QB 10, had the 5th most fantasy points for a rookie quarterback. And, he was for Denver. I mean, this was another team, just like when I talk about the Los Angeles Chargers, I said, this team was a year ahead of what I had expected them to be, if not 2 years. So they did. He showed improvement game in and game out. He did not start the season well, and then he was able to continue to do well with Sean Payton. And they actually went from, I wrote this down, but they went from 25th in play action during the first 6 weeks of the season to finishing 9th in the NFL by the time the regular season finished. So not only was Bo Nix getting better, but Sean Payton was adapting, just like he always does as a head coach. So, Cortland Sutton is still there. I think the only thing that I wrote about here with Denver and Bo Nix that worried me is that I would have liked to have seen one more receiver added. And I know they went into the draft, they got, they did end up getting a rookie over there, and Evan Ingram is there as well. But that's kind of the only thing. But for Bo Nix, you're not necessarily taking a huge leap. QB 10 is what he finished at last season, I believe. And then current ADP is QB 10 as well. So it's not necessarily as risky as CJ Stroud QB 5 last season, but it's still one where you have to look at and say, all right, hopefully he does continue to keep growing.
Yeah, I do think also RJ Harvey was a really good addition and what he can do in the passing game, because Javonte Williams caught, I think, over 50 passes last year. He just couldn't do much with them because the explosiveness wasn't there. And don't forget about my guy, Marvin Mims.
Your guy. every week. The player props, more specifically, for people listening.
That's what it's about. Marvin Mims was a money mine down the stretch. I mean, there were times like his prop was 17.5 yards.
I know, you would hammer the over.
Week 11, week 12.
Listed everyone.
And then it started slowly creeping up. I think I did get burned. Was it the wild card game? I think it was against the Bills. He only had 12 yards. Disappointed me. Let me down. But hey, all the other weeks, he made up for it. So I'll forgive him.
There we go. Well, hey, speaking of Marvin Mims, let's talk about some fantasy football breakouts for 2025. This article was written by Ian Harditz at fantasylife.com, but this is actually from guys with small sample sizes from 2024 that we might want to build on for this upcoming season. So we've got a couple names besides Marvin Mims, but I know that's all Adam's going to want to talk about. Marvin Mims for the next whole segment, but we're going to give you those names here coming up next. All right, fantasy football fans, sure, NFL season may be long over, but next season's action is already well underway. We're talking big trades, new signings, draft order shuffles, you name it, and all this preseason NFL action is easier to enjoy with the official beer of the NFL. So get Bud Light delivered today and enjoy every season projection, every player trade, every coaching change, and draft pick with the clean, crisp taste of Bud Light, the official beer of the NFL. Stock up now for the offseason and enjoy. Bud Light, easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis. His weekend isn't ruined by the cat. If anything, it's a better weekend now, Adam, because you've got George Pickens, a true wide receiver too. So it's been a little bit better. You're
It
fine.
always comes down to expectations. And last year I did not have high expectations for Dallas. I guess right now it's kind of more in the middle. It's like, all right, let's see, prove it to me.
Yeah.
But that's why we have fantasy football and betting. If your team is not going to uplift you and keep you happy or even get to a championship level for you, just win fantasy football championships, win some betting picks. So that's how I've had to overcome the ineptitude of all my teams in sports. Although I'm feeling pretty good about the New York Mets right now. So you don't want to get too high, but they had a hell of a run last year. Ownership is key. That's the thing, though. When we look at a lot of these teams, ownership is so important. And for years, the Mets had bad ownership. Now with Steve Cohen coming in, you see all the changes. You saw it in football. The Washington Commanders, who obviously as a Cowboys fan, I'm not a fan of, but just look at how quickly everything turned around with Snyder gone in 1 year. Now, getting Jaden Daniels really helped. You got to get the quarterback. It's clear. But you need more than that. And it just turned around. And, Dan Quinn, I mean, all the assistants who leave Dallas wound up being pretty good coaches. But, we did see Quinn, though, previously, and it wasn't great. But sometimes you just need the right fit. It worked. There was something the other day where they were showing the grades. You know how they grade teams on weight room, nutrition, all that? And they were showing the grades of the Commanders from 2023 to 2024. You just see the difference. And yeah, it's really ownership that is a big factor. And that's why you see some of these franchises in the NFL that are just continuously bad. And all it takes is just a change and it can turn it around. So, but the bottom line is, though, if your team disappoints you, you just win championships in fantasy football.
That's all you need.
If you're with Fantasy Life, and you're listening to this show and this channel, then that'll offset if you're a Browns fan, a Titans fan, a Jags fan. That's what you need.
You know who didn't do well? I'm looking at this report card now. The Patriots did not do that. They had C pluses, C minuses, Fs, F in the weight room. Tough.
Yeah, Bill Belichick leaves and it all falls apart.
Yeah, that's F minus. Oh no, it was the Cleveland Browns. F minus for the locker room. I didn't even think F minus was a thing.
Nutrition and the food's important for me.
The food is important. Yeah, the food is so important for me, for sure. I did not get the nacho s'mores thing the other day, by the way.
Why not?
Couldn't find it. Had no idea where it was.
That's the thing. When you were always getting on me for stuff, sometimes you don't see it.
I just want you to get a cookie bucket. They have 80
it.
of them across the stadium or something like that.
I didn't see it. They don't sell it at every spot. That's
No.
So I guess the key is if you are into the food and getting different variety, get there early and just take a walk around the stadium.
Exactly. Or if they're losing, like the Colorado Rockies, 19 or whatever, 20-0, then you could walk around.
That's the exception. We talk about watching the game and how I didn't really care about the food as much. If you are a fan of the Colorado Rockies, you have my permission to just go look for any food throughout the stadium because you don't need to sit there. You might want to watch the other team. It's nice, this weekend the Padres, Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado. Yeah, watch them hit. When your team comes up, just go to the concession. It'll save you stress and aggravation. But if you're a good team, you want to watch the team play.
Yeah, well, we'll see with my Seattle Mariners. We'll see what they look like.
So far, so good. I know it's early, and you think they're going to fall apart.
They do this all the time. Yeah, we'll just wait it out.
Here's the thing. To me, American League is wide open. There's no good team. So
I know, but that makes it even more. I think, in my eyes, that makes it even more disappointing. It was just like with the Seahawks. If you had a year where the 49ers were down and the Cardinals didn't, step up at that first half of the season, I was like, oh, this is it. This is perfect. What happens? So, yeah, I don't know. Well, I won't get too excited yet, but some guys we could get excited for here, Adam. Again, we're going through some fantasy football potential breakouts. This is a list from Ian Hartitz, but there were small sample sizes from 2024 that he's bringing out for 2025. So you did mention Marvin Mims in our previous segment talking about the Denver Broncos. So he did make the list. I will say that. So he was gadgety is what Ian kind of described him has like schemed up for touches, whatever, all this stuff. But 24 rush attempts in 34 career games, 27 screen targets last year were the sixth highest mark in the league. First team All Pro returner. I mean, there could be a world where, because they didn't really address the wide receiver position, maybe we are talking a little bit better about Marvin Mims this year.
Yeah, a lot comes down to, and I think Ian does a good job talking about it, is sometimes these players, the team feels this is the best way to utilize them, not giving them that high snap count, get them out there for certain plays. But obviously, as fantasy players or even fans of the team, you look and you're like, well, why aren't we using this guy more? Because Mims is a guy that we've talked about the potential in fantasy for several years. And I think people, well, not several years because he's been in the league 2 years, but it feels like 5. I don't know. It just feels longer. I guess going into last year, maybe there were people that had some hope, and we just didn't see him get on the field pretty much at all. It took until late in the year, and even then, it wasn't a full complement of snaps. And that was the risk, obviously, when you're looking at a prop. You're like, well, if he's not on the field that much, but we were getting that prop in the teens at one point and then the low 20s. So it was like, okay, he can get this on one play, which he did quite often. So that's going to be the key factor that I'm really interested in watching, because I think Ian mentioned it in the article that the first time that he played more than 50% of the snaps was in that wild card game against Buffalo when he did nothing, right? He had 2 catches for 12 yards on 4 targets and 2 carries for 1 yard. So, but we did see him make an impact. He had 4 touchdowns in the last 2 games, 5 touchdowns in the last 5. So I am interested in, because you're talking double-digit rounds. I don't know what his ADP is. I just started like my first draft. So, but
nice.
I'm assuming he's going to be outside the top 50 of wide receivers. He has to be. And I'll take a shot, like as my wide receiver 5 or 6, because once you get into that range, there's a lot of question marks, and maybe he does get on the field a little bit more than we think. But we can't just project, oh, this is what he did. He's definitely going to get more snaps, because it took a long time, and there must have been a reason why. But he's definitely someone I want to watch in the offseason to see what the reports are, because he has that explosive ability.
Wide receiver 57. So you're right there. Yeah, so that puts him around Rashid Shaheed, Keon Coleman, Rashad Bateman, Kyle Williams, Jack Bash.
Okay, there's probably a couple.
There's a couple I would put ahead of him.
Yeah, I'm willing to take a chance in that range. I think I will, for sure.
Yeah. I agree. Let's see if there's more players, though, that we're willing to take a chance on. I want to talk a little bit about more football breakouts like Justin Fields and potentially Sean Tucker for Tampa Bay. We're going to go through those names coming up next. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam Ronis with you on this Sunday, Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us here today. Again, fantasylife.com. That's where you can go and check out all of our articles 100% free. And of course, sign up for that newsletter while you're there in your inbox 7 days a week and 100% free as well. Continuing on, Adam, through some of the fantasy football potential breakouts for 2025. This article is live on the website from Ian Hartitz. I was shocked to see Sean Tucker's name written in any kind of article this early being a potential fantasy football breakout. But listen, if you're talking about Sean Tucker maybe overtaking Rachaad White's role, then I understand it. And I think that's what Ian really tried to say here, was that, Tampa Bay and even Matthew Berry in his, things that he heard when he was at the NFL Combine, he wrote out that, this team loves Sean Tucker. He has the talent to be a number 1 running back in this league. That was a quote from a team source that Matthew Berry talked to. But the issue is that he's stuck behind Bucky Irving. So maybe it's taking over Rachaad White for the RB2 role, which I guess I wouldn't be shocked to see. But it seems like this team really does like Sean Tucker.
Look, I was surprised too when I saw the name, but that's digging deep, and I like that. It's not like some obvious list, because there are people that play in a lot of deep formats, and it is something to keep an eye on too, especially when you hear that information. So yeah, that's a name that you would not expect to hear this time of the year, but take note, right? Take note and be like, okay, keep an eye on this, because we all know, right, when there's injuries, there's going to be backfields where there's 1 or 2 injuries, and you might see a guy like Tucker at some point this year make an impact. So it is good to know, especially in those deep formats. Maybe you take a flyer at a late pick and see what happens. But there weren't a lot of injuries at the running back position last year, as we talked about a lot. Doesn't mean that it will translate and be the same this year. But, that information is good to know.
Oh, for sure. And he did a lot with what he was given last year, even if it was 50 rush attempt. Like it wasn't the most that work that he probably wanted to see, but he was one of the more explosive running backs in the NFL when it came to percentage of carries to gain 10 plus yards, 14% last season from Ian Hartitz. So the only other running backs to clear 12% in the season since 2023 were Achane, Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey. So he's not in bad company when you look at this. And I agree. Maybe just a name to think in the back of your mind, because we always talk about the handcuffs, Adam. There's no way this season that we have as few running back injuries as we did last season. And so if we're thinking, and it's just going to be something where we're going to have to wait, right? We're not going to see it right away. It's going to be training camps probably towards the end of that. But if he is able to take over that RB2 role, that would be big. And you always want to look at who's the next man up in an offense, especially with these running backs. It's, we just have to look. That's why, he wasn't on the list, but, Roschon Johnson as a late round running back target right now. If we're talking about how well DeAndre Swift came out of that draft, we also have to include Roschon Johnson, because again, it's another handcuff where you say we never want injuries to happen, but if it were to happen to Bucky Irving and Sean Tucker's the second RB on that depth chart, we want him. Same with Roschon Johnson. If DeAndre Swift were to go down, we're going to want to have a piece of him just in case that does happen.
And you mentioned two teams with offenses that you want to invest in.
Yes.
Right? The Bears and the Bucks. The Buccaneers obviously have done it a couple years in a row now. Bears, there's a lot of potential, and it's an offense you want a piece of. So you have to be cognizant of those third running backs, even fourth, just for during the season. We saw Tucker did get an opportunity in one game with 14 carries, had over 100 yards. It was a blowout, but it still counts.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. It still counts. Appreciate everyone hanging out with us. Make sure you stick around. You've got Rotoballer Radio with Scott Engel and Michael Florio coming up after this. Again, fantasylife.com. That's where you can go and subscribe to that newsletter. Check out all of our articles 100% free. Kendall, Valenzuela, Adam, Ronis with you. We'll see you here next time.